Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Modern Customer Podcast. I am your host, Blake Morgan. Today, my guest is Ashley Ross, the head of client experience and retail client solutions for Bank of America. Ashley has worked at Bank of America for almost 20 years. She has a fascinating background. She has been a management consultant. She has a bachelor's degree from MIT in brain and cognitive sciences. Today, we are talking about Bank of America's approach to client experience, to digital, how they walk a mile in the customer's shoes. We talk about what she does to look at the future of banking and what she has been paying attention to most as Bank of America's digital presence has grown leaps and bounds. I hope you enjoy Ashley Ross. Ashley, welcome to the Modern Customer Podcast. Where is your office? Where's your home base right now?
Yeah, hi. Thanks for having me today. I'm located in sunny Oklahoma, and it's a beautiful day here today.
Oh, good. Okay, awesome. Well, this is not the first time you and I have chatted on Zoom. I had you present at a CX community meeting that I run. And one of the things that I learned about you after that meeting that I regretted that I didn't know is that you have a degree in brain and cognitive sciences from MIT, where you focus on memory, learning, and neural networks and AI. So I really wish I had known that, because I would have asked you about that, how somebody goes from that to client experience. So can you just talk about why you chose that degree? I know it was a while ago, but just curious how that happened and why.
Yeah, sure. Great question. So that degree at MIT is really a mixture of the brain and the neural science of it, along with AI and artificial intelligence, along with a little bit of human behavior and linguistics. So there are some parallels when I think about my client experience role today, where we're really trying to understand what our clients need, take action on that, and leverage AI and machine learning to analyze the massive amount of data that we get back from our clients. So it's a bit of a stretch in some ways, but there are some similarities in others. And I've always just been fascinated by people and fascinated by how the brain works.
Do you come from a family of scientists, or was this just something that happened unique to you?
Yeah, that would be unique to me. I actually come from a long generation of florists who have a local business around selling flowers. And, I've always grown up with that customer service mentality around, serving customers, learning from what they need from you. So it kind of fits with my client experience role, but it was a big departure coming from Oklahoma and going to MIT and picking a sort of scientist role. But it all kind of comes back to kind of my interest in people and my interest in our client.
Yeah, I also worked at flower shops growing up, and I feel like it gave me so much insight into working directly with customers. But I also was just a fan of the creativity of putting a gorgeous bouquet together. You talked about AI. So you've been studying AI for a really long time then. I'm just curious, in your perspective, the biggest difference in the last few years as we think about CX and AI from when you started.
Yeah, that's a great question. There have been so many really rapid advances in AI and the way companies overall have adopted them and used them. I do think some of the ways we can leverage AI to improve our client experience is by really analyzing really big sets of data and using that to make really personal experiences. So one of the examples, that I think is probably relevant here at Bank of America is our virtual assistant, Erica, who will be able to help me, Ashley, with my own account and answer questions and servicing questions specifically about my own transactions, my own account, and the questions that I ask specifically. And so I think over several years ago, there was a lot of analysis of big data sets. And I think more recently, our company and others are getting better at pivoting that into a very personalized experience.
So, talk about for our audience that don't know you, Ashley, the scope of your role and how it relates to customer experience.
Sure. I lead client experience for consumer and small business here at Bank of America. And my day-to-day job is to listen to our clients in every way that we can and work across the organization to deliver improvements in client experience. And that really entails getting feedback in a variety of ways and making sure we have the right partnerships all across the organization so that feedback is getting in the hands of the people who are designing our processes and driving the improvements for the client.
I recently heard a stat from a former Forrester analyst, Ashley, that companies listen to less than 1% of calls because most of us as customers hear that voice or that automation. This call might be recorded for quality service, but they actually often, and they have to say that because of regulation, but often those calls don't get listened to. I'm curious, how do you capture feedback and what do you do with it? What does the process look like?
Yeah, sure. That's a big part of my job. And we manage a platform that we call Voices, which is essentially a survey program where we in real time can survey clients right after they interact with us, whether that is over the phone or in our branches or in the digital space. And we take that information, and we've had about 50 million responses since we launched the program, which is, to your point, just a ton of data. And a lot of times clients will leave verbatims or comments in addition to how they score us. And we use that information to funnel that information directly to the people who own that product or that process. So they're staying in touch with the client feedback on the things that they develop. But more importantly, we also have about 50,000 internal employees who see that feedback as well in their own dashboards and stay really close to what the client is telling. So that's really been a game changer for us culturally, is not only gathering that much feedback from our clients, but ensuring that the front line who are speaking with our clients have that feedback near real time, as well as the people who are a little bit more back office who are developing our products and services. So that we invested a lot of technology and time to really ensure that was integrated in a really meaningful way. And that we can cover, 90+% of the interactions our clients have with us to get that deep feedback.
So 50,000 people, you said, see that feedback. So that tells me that is not just people working in the contact center and customer service. So who are these employees? And is that kind of vulnerable to literally have so much of your workforce seeing the dirty laundry potentially?
Yeah, so it's basically any level in the organization have access to that feedback, to someone who is in the contact center serving our clients over the phone, to someone who is in the financial center serving our client, and really all levels of leadership in between. And really the vast majority of feedback that we get is very positive. And that can be a real motivator for our front line, for them to see the thank yous for the client, to see the moments that matter and when they delivered. And, I talked a little bit about, making sure that feedback gets in the hands of our associates. And part of it could be, to your point, some negative feedback on something where we didn't get it quite right. But it also, the vast majority of it is thanking our associates. And back in the pandemic, we were staying really close to our data to try to understand what was changing for the clients, what they were telling us, and what was different. And one of the number one themes that popped to the top was appreciation for our associates, our employees. So to your point, there is, the intention is to get to understand the places where we can do better, but it also is a real motivator for the people who serve our clients every day, so they can see the difference that they're making.
Yeah, I mean, one of the big tenets of customer experience, Ashley, is being able to walk a mile in the customer's shoes. Is that one of the ways that you allow your employees to walk a mile in the customer's shoes?
Yeah, absolutely. And you can see the full experience that the client had and really understand their whole journey. So it's partially in letting them see that feedback, but it's partially kind of taking a step back and looking at the holistic experience from our client. Maybe they interacted with us in digital, then they interacted with us over the telephone, and maybe then they interacted with us within the financial center. And you can stitch that all together to really understand the experience that they're having really holistically.
I read that Bank of America had 1 billion digital interactions in July alone. That number is enormous. I'm sure the pandemic influenced that. What is the pressure like to continue to iterate your digital experience for clients? And how are you continuing to do that? It sounds like it needs to be done almost every day.
Yeah, you're right. 1 billion is a big number, and that's the highest month ever. And the pandemic really drove a lot of digital adoption, and we see that just continuing month over month. And to your point, we've got 55 million verified digital users. That's a lot of people who use the digital platforms every single day and really expect that flawless execution and expect that continued innovation. And our digital teammates are really continuing to evolve that experience, improve that experience, so it becomes the center hub for all the clients' banking needs. And so one of the things that we're really excited about is having a uniform app that includes mobile banking, private banking, prepaid, and other functionality into one app. And the team is consistently looking at ways to add functionality to the platform, whether that you may have seen LifePlan is one of the really exciting features that I like, that enables clients to go in and really plan for what's important to them specifically, or Erica is another feature. So that continued innovation and investment in the technology will be ongoing, given that we have such a large user base. And that's the way our clients really would like to interact with us. We certainly will have high touch components for people who want to interact with us in our branches and our financial centers. But that digital platform is really the core of how, to your point, 1 billion logins a month is something we're going to continue to invest in and continue to be innovating in.
So you mentioned a feature called LifePlan, Ashley, LifePlan. Can you describe what that looks like and what the role is of that functionality?
Yeah, absolutely. LifePlan is a capability for our clients to go in and set their life goals, go in and set some priorities for them specifically, and they can do that online. And they can also go in and talk to a specialist about it in one of our branches. And that's one of the things that I like about it. It truly is this kind of cross-channel integrated experience across our high-tech platforms and our high-touch people. And there's been about 8 million clients who have engaged with Bank of America's LifePlan already to track progress towards their short-term goals and their long-term goals. And just to give you an example of some of the things, the top goal really is around budgeting and starting to save, which is 34%. And, followed by things like improving credit, which is 28%, saving for a large purchase, 21%. So you get the idea. It allows users to set some priorities and a plan for how they'd like their financial life to play out, and enables them to track it over time and talk with a person in our financial centers if they'd like.
So obviously money is very emotional for people. It's emotional now. I mean, with inflation the way it is, people are watching their purse strings, and it's not an easy time on the heels of a pandemic. A lot of movement, a lot of change. What are the ways that you enable employees to walk a mile in the customer's shoes? Because you're processing millions and millions of customers. How do you make it tangible for an employee to see, this is how I'm impacting one person somewhere in the world?
Yeah, it's a great point about how the times are such that clients are really looking for their financial providers to give them advice and help them navigate their financial lives. And so one of the things that is culturally ingrained in part of our culture is our purpose to make our clients' financial lives better. And we actually have a program that we call our financial health program, where we focus on what are the ways we can help our clients become financially healthy. So to your point, we're not just conducting a transaction for them. We're not just answering a service question, but the end goal is for us to help them with their financial lives. And we look at it kind of around 5 key pillars. I won't go into detail on all of them, but just to give you a sense of what they are, it's around, helping our clients simplify their finances, helping them manage their money, giving them access to experts, helping them build knowledge, and giving them help when needed. And one of the things that I really like about this whole knowledge program is, I don't know if you've seen Better Money Habits, but it's a program out there with some really great content around how to manage your finances. And it has a ton of information. I've used it with my children. I've used it with friends and family. But I think that's the way we kind of really walk a mile in our clients' shoes and empathize with them, is to just keep that mission at the forefront, where we're really there to help make their financial lives better, however we interact with them.
Ashley, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's something that is near and dear to my heart. I never was really educated about money, and financial literacy is really important for children. It is not something that is taught necessarily in school. And unless somebody sits you down and says, hey, you don't want credit card debt, you need to start saving, here's how you put money away for a rainy day, you might not have that financial education, and you won't ever get off on the right foot. So what are the ways that you are investing in financial literacy, especially from a digital perspective, when it's just become much easier?
Yeah, there's a number of ways that we invest in that financial literacy. And, the first one that I mentioned, Better Money Habits, is a great example of the content that we publish, which is accessible and free. We also have community financial centers, which are really have specialists in them to leverage that Better Money Habits content and socialize it with our clients, help them with their credit, and have some dedicated specialized services there. And then in the digital space, it's really all about, going back to the client need. And so the LifePlan example is a good one, where if you are setting a goal that you're interested in saving and budgeting, there is content and tools available to help you do that. And so with digital, it's all about trying to make it a seamless experience within the application and where you are, and give you those tools and content along the way. But we also have specialists in financial centers who can also do that in a very high touch way.
So when we think about banking and the digital stack, I know this, you're not necessarily the CTO, but I'm sure that you're very involved with the technology that helps you do what you need to do every single day. What is the process like of building the tech stack? Is that something that you mostly do in-house, or does a consulting firm come in and tell you what technology to buy? Would you give us some information about how that works?
Yeah, the piece that I can probably speak to the most is really how we work with our digital partners on the client experience. And we have a lot of great digital leaders and in-house technologists who will assess the things you just mentioned. But the way that I really interact with them is by looking at the client journey and looking at it across all the channels. So one of the things that we do as part of my role in client experience is bring together people from digital, from the financial center, from our product groups, from our communications team, all together, so that we can stitch together the journey in the client's mind. So instead of looking just at the digital experience and in isolation, we really look at what is the client journey and what are they trying to accomplish, and then frame out the experience that they may have in any one of our channels. So so I think that, to your point, there's a ton of investment in digital, but we also try to take a step back and say, let's frame it in terms of what the client is trying to do. And then we can develop our client experience in digital and the other channels from there. And then our digital experts and our technologists will decide exactly how best to build it.
The way you're talking about building almost like a task force, a team with people from across the organization, I have heard this quite a few times from leaders in big organizations, where that is what it takes. You have to reach across the red tape and bring everybody together. Does it take one person to spearhead that CX conversation, or is that just now ingrained in the organization that this is how we focus on the customer?
I think it's a little bit of both. It's definitely ingrained in the culture that everything that we do needs to be centered on the client. And there are different teams throughout the organization who have their charter to really lead and ensure we're improving the client experience. We found at Bank of America that it is super helpful to bring together everyone into one council, one working group, one forum, so that you can really drive that integration. So I think it's a little bit of both. I feel like you've got to have the teams who actually serve the clients or the teams who actually build the products need to be responsible for the client experience. We're all responsible for that. But at the same time, there is incredible value to pulling everyone together so you can see the end-to-end journey for the client. Otherwise, people tend to look at their own piece of the puzzle. So I think it's a little bit of both.
In a role like yours, Ashley, it seems that there must be a balance between meeting the needs of today's client and addressing the needs of the business today, while also keeping an eye on the horizon for what's coming around the bend. How much of your time do you focus on, let's say, the future of banking?
That's a great question, in that whenever we're framing out our next steps, we always try to think a step or two ahead to, it's always dangerous when I use a sports analogy, but skate where the puck is going, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we really try to listen to what the clients are telling us to identify what are some of our short-term actions, but make sure that when we're building for the future, we're really building towards where the customers are going or where their needs are evolving. And it really is a balance of both. And so I think the other thing is we also spend just as much time looking at the places where we're getting it right for our clients. Where are we industry leading? Where are we succeeding? Where are we differentiating ourselves? And let's double down on that and continue to invest in those areas as well. So I think it's a little bit of a balance between looking at the areas where you can do better and looking at the areas where you're already doing great. And then looking at the short-term needs and the long-term needs, and just balancing all of those on an ongoing basis.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it seems like every CX leader today needs to be somewhat of a futurist to figure out, well, what banking is transforming so quickly with digital that I need to also pay attention to trends. And that's not really part of my day job necessarily, but I need to get it done. Where do you get your news or your information about where the puck is going?
Yeah, it's interesting how clients' perceptions on what they expect from their bank are influenced by their interactions with other clients, right? So, or other companies, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we not only need to keep an eye on our competitors, our direct competitors, who are the other big banks, but really look at the other companies who are innovating and leading the way and providing great client experiences. So that we can, do our parallel version of that in banking. And so really, I certainly think it's a lot of client experience information that covers specifically the financial sector, but we have to look much broader than that. The people like the Amazons or the Starbucks or the others. I think about before the pandemic, my expectation for takeout food was one expectation. And then, after the pandemic, I expect to pull it up on my app and pre-order and pay for it and double click and drive through and get it. And so clients' perspectives have changed a lot just from their interaction with other retailers. And so we need to look at not only what we see in the financial industry, but also some of the other industries as well.
Right. Yeah. And there is so much pressure now that consumers are getting these amazing consumer friendly experiences. And it is hard because those businesses might not have the same regulation that a bank has, where you might not be able to move as quickly because you're a regulated industry.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, certainly there are a lot of industries, I think, that are either regulated or have different unique challenges, right?
Right.
And it's always a balance between, really taking a step back on what is it that we need to accomplish for the customer, and how can we best get there.
Right. Absolutely. Well, this has been really informative. And I know our audience also want to get to know you on a personal level. Are you game for some rapid fire questions?
Okay, sure. Let's do it.
All right, Ashley, what is one tool or resource that you use for personal development and that you used that came out of COVID?
Well, I certainly like a good podcast. I really like the Happiness Lab and a few other podcasts that I listen to on my commute to work to just try to get myself in the right mind frame to make the best impact on the world that I can.
Awesome. Yeah, quite a few people say podcasting, that's a new habit they picked up. All right, this one's a little tough. What is your most embarrassing work moment?
I try not to dwell on those. Maybe I'll take a pass on that one. But, I think, kidding aside, I think probably one of the most embarrassing moments was when I was a consultant and I did not realize that the person who I had sort of sat down to have lunch with was kind of one of their senior most clients of ours. And, had a great conversation afterwards that I think turned out well, but I probably felt a little embarrassed afterwards that I didn't totally know, some of the protocol around that. I think the lesson is, that you should always have open conversations and they yield the best results. But it was a little bit embarrassing afterwards.
Yeah, everybody has to make those mistakes when they're young. And then, that's the way you grow and learn. If you could have lunch with anyone dead or alive, who would it be?
Oh, goodness. Well, I think I'm supposed to probably say some kind of industry leader or some kind of motivational speaker. But I think the reality is it probably would be my stepfather. He passed away about 6 years ago, and I think about him often. And he gave me a lot of really good life lessons that I think about on an ongoing basis. But I still have some unanswered life questions where I feel like I'd love to know his answers to those.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. What is your idea of perfect happiness?
Oh, perfect happiness, I think is, for me, I feel like it's all about conquering the mind. It goes back to my brain and cognitive science roots where, I feel like there are a lot of external things in the environment that can, drive your happiness or not. But the reality is it kind of comes from within. So for me, I feel like the idea of perfect happiness is really just sort of mastering the mind and kind of practicing that gratitude.
What is your idea of a perfect vacation?
I think a perfect vacation to me involves doing something adventurous with some moments of wonder, as well as something leisurely with nothing on the itinerary. I love places that have gorgeous scenery. I have a lot of places on my bucket list, including hiking in Utah, as well as some other, scenic areas I'd like to go to. So I think a mix of adventure and leisure is a perfect vacation.
And lastly, if you had $1 billion, what would you do with it first?
Well, first of all, I would get a great plan with an advisor to ensure that I was maximizing that money.
Right.
But kidding aside, that would be a really big responsibility and easy to squander. So I would just like I would a life plan. I would sit down and I would think about my priorities and align the money accordingly and make sure I had a really rigorous plan to oversee it and manage it in the right way. But it would involve some category of, helping others in need, while also fulfilling my life's goals. But kidding aside, I feel like that's a big amount of money that would require a lot of thought around, how to invest it, how to save it, and how to spend it in a really thoughtful way.
All right. Well, Ashley, this has been so fun. If people want to learn more about all of the programs you talked about today, where can they do that?
Yeah, absolutely. If you go to bankofamerica.com, you can see all of the content that we have on what we offer our clients, our financial health program, our digital offering. It's all there in one place, publicly available, and you can find it all there.
All right, Ashley, thank you, everybody. You have been tuning into the Modern Customer Podcast. Until next time.